Hello, it's Joe Glines. In this video we're going to go through how to convert a lot of strings, yes-no values to numerics and have value labels. So in this example here I have 4 variables that have, they're all strings. If we change this to look at this, you can see the string type, they're strings. Sorry, the variable type, they're strings. There's no labels, right? And notice also the width is 4, 4, 8, 4. Let's make this 12, right? It doesn't really matter. So in each one of these, you'll see there's variations of either the word yes, no. The case is also upper and lower case. So normally, if you're getting it from a survey, it'll be consistent, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes, actually, if you have an open and write-in, and it was a yes, no, where you're looking for a Y or N or some other terms, right? You can apply this macro to the same thing. In my macro here, what you'll see is, so this is this just opens and gets a data file. So everything between this define and this define is my macro. And what you'll notice is there's really only one parameter saying what are the variable names you want to collect. And this command N means basically take everything that comes from the very first one to the end of the line. So however many variables show up, run those through the macro. And that works because this is a do and loop. So it's going to go through and do this over and over and over for each macro. So do the variable name, right, as it comes in, says, okay, for each one, and then go run through this. And what it's going to do is it's going to first this index. So this, by the way, is not smart, right, in the sense that you can put in there if the answer said y'all, I mean no, then it's still going to, actually depends on the order of that, because there was an N in there as well, but it's going to just look for a Y or an N, right? So I just say, basically, if there's anywhere in this variable, if there's a Y, create a 1, and if there's an N, create a 0. And I realized was like the yes and no, or it also works for just Y or N, by the way. Sorry, that's what I was trying to point out, was sometimes the data set will export just a Y or an N, and you want to convert them into numbers. And then I take, so I create here a temp variable. It's not really a temp variable. I'm calling it temp because I do a couple other things with it. And so I call a variable called temp 1, 2, 3, 4. If there's a Y, make it a 1. If there's an N, make it 0. Make the format of the temp F3, so no decimal places. The width, I'm going to set it to 4. I'm going to apply labels to make 0 no and 1 yes. I'm going to make it a scale variable because in SPSS, I'm probably going to want to compute the means of some of those things, and depending on the test I'm doing, it needs to be a scale. And then what I actually do is drop out the original variable. So I get rid of like this yes no in the first case where it runs through. In this example, the very first time it runs through, it's going to first create the new temp 1, 2, 3, 4 off of that variable, and then later it's going to drop out right here. It'll drop out my original variable and then rename the one I had created to that name. And so this way I end up with the same variable, and I don't have to think about a new name for the variable. And this just ends the loop, and after it does all this stuff, it executes it, and as again, this is the end of the macro. So let's watch what happens. As with all macros, first you need to define it. So I'm going to run this, and it's going to just define it, and now it basically just defined it. So now there's the macro is in memory, and I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to call the macro. So when I call it, you'll notice here, you know what, this will make this convenient. I'm going to grab this, put it over here so we can see what happens. I'm going to run it, and you kind of saw that things blinked, and I guess 3 wide is too small because the headers up there kind of looked a little hard to read. But notice now there's value labels here, right? If you notice up here, there's actually numbers behind that. And if we click on here, and you can go in here and see, right, so there's no and yes for each one of these. They're all numerics. They're all width 3. And notice also that these are blank. These are missing because they were missing before and it didn't code them into something. Of course, if you had wanted to say if it's missing, make it a 0. Sometimes that's the case what you want to do. But you can see here how now everything is standardized yes, no, instead of like this. And that's the first one. The second one I'm going to do real quickly here is a derivative of that. Let me go back and open my original data set. So now we have the original data set, and what I have as a second one, I'll leave that open here. I have a second macro which does a yes, no, and not applicable. So basically, I just have a third line here that says if you find either n/a or na, make it 2. So there's a 0, 1, and now there's a 2. And now it's going to be, it's not scale because I wouldn't want to compute the means of those. So it'll be nominal. I have a new value label here for na, and I don't remember if I have defined this one yet. So I'm going to define it. Go back to this, and now when I run this, we'll go back to the data. Here's an NA, right? Here's a couple more NAs. So you can see it found the not applicables and made them into 2s. So you can see up here there's a 2. But obviously this is not a big deal when there's 4 variables and 10 rows, but when you have thousands of cases and dozens or hundreds of variables, it can be very quick and easy. And of course you can apply the same thing to other principles and how you want to do that. Thank you.